All right, it's that time of the hour, time of the day, time of the year, and the man of the year. I don't know if it's official. Somewhere you got to be the man of the year for cryptocurrency. Well, I'm talking about the Dewayne Hart, not Dewayne Hart. The Dewayne Hart is joining us in the studio once again for another conversation about cryptocurrency. All right, and today's topic specifically is going to be about all things cryptocurrency. We talk about a lot about cybersecurity, right? On all levels from A to Z. This episode is about cryptocurrency. And here's some of the hot points we're going to hit. The cryptocurrency exchange network, financial scams, account takeovers, mobile scams, which I think is really interesting. That's a surface we've never really kind of delved into. So maybe we're going to touch on it, maybe an upcoming episode just on that topic. Also, for businesses, know your customer should be on your short list, and crypto mining. Those are just a few of the topics we're going to hit on. But Dewayne, before we kick things off, actually, if you haven't heard of Dewayne Hart, he's not .com. That's this website, right? But if you got to check out DewayneHart.com for all things about cryptocurrency. He literally wrote the book on the subject matter. He's an expert guru, if you will. He has a podcast as well as this interview and as well as YouTube channel. So having said that, Dewayne, let's start, before we talk about cryptocurrency, let's talk about the blockchain itself and how it works. Yeah.
Okay. Blockchain itself comes from typical crypto background. All right. It just so happened that it's starting to be used in the financial industry. So when you think of blockchain, and then think about a chain link, and think about each link represent a block, and each one of those blocks are attached to each other. So in order for you to break this sequence of change, then you got to break all the blocks apart from each other. So what's so interesting, especially about cryptocurrency, is that it uses blockchain and it's used hashing algorithms. And so those hashing algorithms are pretty much attached to each block. And if you are trying to break any type of blockchain ledger, well, guess what? You got to break all of them apart,
right?
Because they all are connected together. And see, now, it's always a discussion that is irreversible,
right?
And it is irreversible, but trust me, hackers are getting smarter every day, and somewhere in the future, I'm pretty sure they're going to find ways to break through. But by the time they find ways to break through, I think that the algorithms are going to change. Cryptocurrency is going to change a lot. One of the things I like to bring up here too is that when you deal with cryptocurrency, try to understand that there is no middleman, because it's not regulated by the government.
Yeah, it's anonymous. Every transaction is anonymous, right?
Right. Also, too, just keep in mind that there's no gatekeeper.
Right.
Okay. Because it's like in the wild. There are no gatekeepers.
Right.
When you're working with the dollar system, there is a gatekeeper, which is the Department of Treasury.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Be careful. You don't say much more than that. So that can be, that's a yin and yang thing, right? So no gatekeeper can be great, but there's challenges by not having somebody kind of monitor this, right?
Yes. The challenges are that people have control of their currency, but also, too, there is no monitoring of the hacking environment.
Right.
Because the government is not watching hackers that try to infiltrate a crypto system, pretty much a cryptocurrency system.
Right.
All right. So what happens is that you count in the wild.
Right.
And it's not really, how can I say, centralized. It's kind of decentralized. And it's a virtual way of doing transactions. Now, blockchain technology has pretty much been around for a long time. It just so happened that cryptocurrency is trying to take a new leap now. And I will admit, it sounds really good.
Right.
Because you can buy a coin for only 2 cents.
Right.
Right. And hopefully in the next couple of years that, that coin is worth $5.
Right.
So that's a completely nice markup.
Yeah, big time. It's a huge return on investment. And again, the gatekeeper issue is that it's really the definition of a true free marketplace, right?
Yes.
Where there's no entity, whether government or private, making any judgment calls, decisions of who can play the game. It's a really, it levels the playing field for all participants involved, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Rich, I just want to say something for a second. When it comes to cybersecurity, some of the same type of issues that we have with cryptocurrency are standard all the way across the industry. All right. Because when you look at hacking and we look at cybercrime, someone is trying to infiltrate the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
The bubble is cybersecurity. Want to find ways to defeat cybersecurity.
Right.
And usually with something like cryptocurrency, because it's such a growing market, I'm pretty sure a lot of people use their cell phones because, you get that text and it say that one of the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, it has taken a dip. The person goes, oh, yeah, I need to invest in it now.
Right.
I need to do this now. But step back. Was that really from Bitcoin? Or was it just that a person was being lured
right
into an area of hacking us, I may add?
So let's talk about the cryptocurrency and Cybersecurity Connect, right? What are some of the steps or processes involved in, connecting these two entities?
Well, the first one is proper authentication. Because with authentication, especially with some of the sites like Coinbase now,
mm-hmm.
in order for you to log on to your cryptocurrency account, you're going to have to use one computer. And if you go to another computer, then you have to verify that computer. All right.
Right.
And then also, too, during the authentication process, you're always going to be using two-factor authentication.
Okay.
So because you need authentication in place so you can verify the identity of the person that is either logging into the account or the person that's making the transaction.
Right. To provide those safeguards and those checks and balances in place, which then talk about encryption.
Encryption is about secrecy of information. Okay. This is the bulk of cryptocurrency.
Right.
Okay. You want to make it as secret as possible. See, there is something called ciphertext, and also to something called clear text. Now, with ciphertext, you are encrypting information. All right. With this plain text, there is no encryption at all.
Really?
It's just standard data in the wild.
Okay.
So with cryptocurrency, it uses encryption.
Right.
And the information is put in a ciphertext that is sent through the blockchains.
Right.
All right. So that's one way of looking at cryptography. But see, cryptography has been around for a long time.
And with these policies in place or that infrastructure, there's no guarantee in life, but does that ward off a lot of the typical financial scams that could be conducted elsewhere?
No.
Okay.
Never.
There's no guarantee, but it probably does provide, a little bit more sense of security.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you get a sense of the security, but cyber criminals are cyber criminals.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I mean, you can go back to the old stagecoach days or the train robberies, right? The train was pretty secure, but there's no guarantee. I don't know how they really hijacked a train with horses. I never understood that part, right? But I guess if you have enough ammunition and can create a fear within the engineer, it can happen. So let's move on maybe to talk about some concerns in terms, we mentioned financial scams. What are some of the electronic, crimes that are more difficult to track?
Yes. When you think about these electronic crimes,
mm-hmm.
people or like hackers are sitting behind a computer or their phone and they carrying out an illegal activity.
Right.
So what happens is that sometimes you may not even be able to ping in on the laptop or what computer they're using, because they can log into another network and to carry it out. So let's just imagine, right? If you had your laptop,
right,
and if it was a building across the street over here,
uh-huh,
right, and let's say that you wanted to probably hack into a crypto currency account,
okay,
you could literally try to hack into that building over there and use their network,
right,
to hack into that system.
Okay.
So what you're doing now is that you're putting the onus on the other building over there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one of the ways of looking at this, because as an electronic crime is that there are so many endpoints
right
everywhere. See, it's not like a physical crime. You know,
right,
when people were walking into a bank
yeah,
saying, "Give me all your money."
right,
Easy. It was a body.
right.
But today we have laptops and we have different systems that people use, and they're called endpoints.
Okay.
And so what you have to do is to have some type of way of tracking these endpoints down, and hopefully your threat logs are doing it. You know, a threat log tells you that this is an IP address that has logged onto the system.
And it's not been authorized.
Right.
Or authenticated, like we talked about.
There you go.
All right. So let's talk about, the American dollar. Where does the American dollar, or any currency around the world, physical currency, what's the future, if you will, or, the risk in terms of versus cryptocurrency online?
Well,
the digital dollar, if you want, yeah.
Well, the problem is that there are a group of people that want to change all their currency over to cryptocurrency.
Right.
Okay. Then it kind of put the American dollar at risk, because nobody wants to use American dollars anymore.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay. So
Ruh-roh.
Right. But part of that is that it's a get-rich scheme.
Okay.
Okay. Cryptocurrencies are very, very volatile. All right. Because today you can have $1 million and tomorrow you can have $2. The dollar is not as volatile as these cryptocurrencies are. So it's a major type of concern. But also, too, the reason that it is a concern is because it's not policed.
Right.
Nobody really has a handle on who is really trying to control the market, because these are peer-to-peer networks that are being used.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely the two sides of the coin, no pun intended, but it basically is where things have happened, nefarious players have come in, and who's policing this, right? And what's their motive? When you allow, somebody's hand in the candy jar, so to speak, there's greed comes into play, and they try to embezzle money and yada, 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 right? Because they have access to it. If any given individual, organization, company, entity, government doesn't have access to it, then it should prevent or it helps provide, again, that safeguard and eliminates a lot of this. Because whenever there's money available to people, it's almost it's problematic at the front end, right? So the concept of, as I understand it, blockchain and cryptocurrency is, with nobody kind of governing this,
right?
You eliminate the greed factor and the ability for someone to take advantage of the system.
Right.
But the hackers are basically the new, 21st century version of somebody trying to break into the cookie jar.
They are the new form of government currency.
Yeah, right.
The hackers are.
Okay, so we got lots more to cover here, but just want to remind our listeners, again, you're listening to Rich Casanova here on this side of the mic in our Atlanta Global Podcast Studios, and Dewayne Hart on the other side. And if some of these topics are of interest to you, check out DewayneHart.com. There you'll find access to order a copy of his book. Talk to us, give us your 17-second best pitch on the book here in a second. But on that DewayneHart.com, you'll also find links to his YouTube channel, to the podcast, the Cybersecurity Mindset. Talk to us about the book.
Hey, the Cybersecurity Mindset simplifies cybersecurity. It also illustrates how to operate cybersecurity, and it also helps readers understand how to connect cybersecurity and to form what I call the cybersecurity blueprint, because there's a fear factor about cybersecurity.
Right.
So what cybersecurity mindset does is to take the different pieces of cybersecurity, talk about it, and illustrate to readers how to connect them together so that they can build that cybersecurity blueprint. And also, I would say this again, is to remove that fear factor.
Right.
Because people are afraid of cybersecurity today, so we have to remove that fear factor.
Well, and what's interesting about blockchain and the cryptocurrency is that people do have that fear of the unknown, and they go, well, that's kind of weird. There's no physical money, in my hand, and so I'm not interested. I don't want to deal with cyber cryptocurrency. But the reality is, if you go back in history, in the very early days, I had some goats and you had some coffee beans, and we would make a transaction, right? Because I didn't have, and we would trade that type of currency. Then it was, here's a coin that has the queen's picture on there. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking that. Give me your coffee beans or your goat milk, right? Right. And then it morphed into like, well, we don't have the coins because that was cumbersome. I'll give you a piece of paper that has a government image on there. It's like, I'm not taking paper. Give me your coin. Then it was like, here, I'll write you a check instead of paper. I'm like, I don't know what this is. It's IOU. No, give me your dollar instead of a check. Then it was American Express traveler's checks. Then it was, here's a piece of plastic. I'm not going to give you a check, but I'll give you a piece of plastic and you can scan it, credit card. People weren't adopting all of those versions of currency exchange until it became popular, right? So now people are looking at cryptocurrency. Digital, no, I'm not interested. Give me your credit card. But it's going to be a matter of time, and the curve is going to shift, and potentially this will be, all of those other things I mentioned. Nobody's trading coffee for goat milk anymore, right? Or old coins, right? So,
well, you know what it does? It goes and help out with bounce checks.
Right. Exactly, right? They don't want to take the check because it's going to clear or not. With cryptocurrency, it's online. So, okay, so a couple more topics to hit before we wrap things up. So let's talk about some risk. What are some on your short list of some significant risks?
All right. Account hijack. Someone takes over your account. That's why two-factor authentication is in place for these cryptocurrency account.
Yeah.
And normally what happens is during the registration process, if it's a lag in time, that's when hackers can hijack an account.
Okay.
Once it's created, then it becomes much more difficult to hack into those accounts. A second level is that the identity fraud concept comes to surface here. Here goes the way that the identity fraud can actually work, is that someone will pretend to be you, or someone will pretend to be someone from Coinbase and trying to get information.
Right.
Okay. So when you look at the identity fraud there, all your personal information can be used for other means as also for your own account. Because you think about a mobile device, and if someone tries to log into a Coinbase account, and let's say they send someone a text and saying that you need to log into this link on Coinbase and you need to update your information, whatever, right? And so the person logs into Coinbase and it's not Coinbase, but it's a bogus website.
Right, unknowingly, yeah.
Right. Okay, so that happened. One of the other ways is phishing. Yeah. Phishing is good too. You send them that email, and as I said before, you send them to a bogus website.
Right.
Let's even talk about some ransomware.
Okay.
You got to pay me $1,000 to go get back into your $1 million account that you have. So
exactly.
So what happens?
Sounds like a good idea.
Right. Now this is where the return on investment comes to surface. If I give him $1,000, I can get back into my $1 million account on Coinbase.
Right.
See, that's just the easy way of how hackers can infiltrate accounts. What about a computer glitch? Let's say, for instance, during the time that someone is registering,
right,
and if there is a computer glitch, and let's say the information is stalled,
right.
This is very significant here,
right?
All right, so that's one, and let's talk about miners,
okay?
Because miners, they can disrupt timing. Miners are they like to review transactions, because when you think of mining, you are taking a deep dive analysis and going in and searching and trying to find information.
Right.
See, it's like coal miners, right? That
Right.
are digging, right?
Right.
Well, these hackers are digging as well too, and just trying to find information. And so what happened is that miners are going to review these transactions and try to gain control of your Bitcoin accounts and so forth.
Now, one of the topics that's on the list here, I really had put a question mark next to. What is this concept of double spend currency?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That is when...
that caught my attention. I'm like, what is that?
Okay, because miners will go and find out your information,
right,
and try to set up a second transaction, okay? So
like
that means...
clone or something?
Yes, a clone.
Okay.
So that the miners will set it up, because the crypto chain is irreversible. But what if they can set up another transaction and double spend your money? Just like, for instance, you may say, okay, Dan, I have $10 that I want to pull out. But if a miners can find that information, then they can set up another transaction. And as you execute your transaction, it replicates. So that means that the $10 that you thought that you were extracting out, it turns to $20.
Right. Okay, that makes sense, because then it doesn't necessarily set up red flags.
Well, it would for me, but
no, yeah, exactly, for you, but not for the average Joe.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think our last topic on the list here. Let's talk about some. We've talked about defining the blockchain, defining cryptocurrency, some hacker tools that they've been using, and financial risk and problems, and some of the frauds. Let's finish up with what are some controls to counter all of these, some of these topics we've talked about.
Let's go talk about email.
Best practices.
Email is number one at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Pay close attention to email and make sure that it's from a legitimate source. Mm-hmm. Because if it's anything such as someone sending you a web link and telling you to go to a website so that you can update your Coinbase account or something like that, you really have to watch that.
Yeah.
And just to make sure that you are staying wise, and also too that you noticing any type of unfamiliar activity on your accounts as well. And I bring up email because that's probably the most centralized.
That's the entry point, right? It's your front door. It's your front door.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it is the front door.
Yeah.
So if someone can find a way to infiltrate your account through email by actually conversing someone to go to another website that is illegitimate, and the person put information in there, and now someone can log into your Coinbase account, because it can be as easy as like Coinbase is going through and making sure every user can reset their passwords.
Right.
And you get the email and it says you must go to this link, and you go to that link and you put your username and password in there. Okay.
Game over.
Game is over.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, a lot of these principles apply that we're somewhat familiar with in our everyday life, in terms of you don't give out your PIN to the ATM machine, right?
Yeah.
You don't take a phone call that and they're asking for private information, and it could be from the source, your bank or your home mortgage or whatever it is. But instead of completing that conversation, you go directly to the source.
Well,
and you contact the bank or the IRS or that entity. So in this case, you might be a legitimate email from a cryptocurrency account that you've set up that has some updates, some system updates, some things you need to correct. But don't reply that email is what you're saying. Go to log into your actual account, see if there's any alerts there.
I am going to say that humans are the weakest link in this process. Yeah. And let's just be real about this. Because humans are the weakest link, because humans are very flexible.
Right.
The technology is a standard. So why not deal with the issue of being flexible?
Right.
Because a human can make the wrong decision, but technology has a standard. If you state in technology that two-factor authentication is the primary type of safeguard that is being used, guess what? It's there. But as a hacker, you want to defeat that purpose by
Right.
saying, okay, if I can get the humans to go and actually to authenticate to the wrong source, then I can gain access.
Right.
Some of the other errors is you got to safeguard your account passwords.
We talked about it last time. In real estate, they say the three principles are location, location, location. In cybersecurity, it's all about password, password, password.
Password, password, password. You know, I just was reading an article earlier about having a password manager,
Right.
and versus using two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
And two-factor authentication is best if you have a lot of passwords, and to use a passwords manager. I've always thought that, you know, a password manager is just something that's saving your passwords either through the browser, and it makes it easy. But at the same time, I prefer to use two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
Now, Coinbase is very, very strong with making sure that two-factor authentication operates. And if you have not logged into your account in an extremely long time,
Right.
it's going to have you to re-authenticate
Yeah.
and to re-verify who you are.
Another safeguard in place.
Yes.
Okay, so last question is, we teased at the top of the hour about this crypto exchange network. Define or help us determine what that is involved in the crypto exchange network.
Oh, okay then. Well, it's a peer-to-peer network.
Okay.
Okay. And it's usually one person that is trying to create a ledger. And so in that blockchain network, so what you have is that someone that registers for a transaction, and then the transaction is represented as a block in a shared ledger. Then so after that, the block is broadcasted to all participants. And then after that, the participants approve the transaction is valid. And, you know, this is the area here that is most important. Is it valid? Because if it's not identified as being valid, that's when double spend currency comes to place.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
And then the next thing is, you know, the block is added to the chain, because as you build these blockchains and as they are encrypted and as they hash, once you do a transaction, which is a record,
Right.
they are added onto the chain.
Okay.
So for a hacker to infiltrate that chain or to make it irreversible, you're going to have to break all of the different blocks. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Which is increasingly hard to do.
Big time.
So the easy way that a hacker can infiltrate a crypto network is prior to the network being created or prior to the peer-to-peer connection.
Right.
All right. Because once it's created, it's increasingly harder.
Yeah. It's kind of more locked, like you said. That's an interesting takeaway I had, was the concept of if there's a glitch while you're setting up the account or you pause or whatever, that's basically kind of leaving go back to the analogy, it's like you're leaving your front door cracked open, right? Once the door is closed and locked with a deadbolt, it makes it not impossible, but a whole lot more of a challenge than just like, oh, the door's open, let me just walk in.
Yeah, it's called that lag time.
Yeah. Okay.
See, because
that makes sense.
This same concept applies to any transaction and any type of network communication that you have, because the cryptocurrency networks are very fast. Okay, see, they're speedy transactions. Okay. So what if you can slow it down in its lag time? You know, that's when the problem occurs. Most of the people that are familiar with a handshake,
right, over in
IT, TCP, IP, okay, handshaking. Okay, this is kind of, you know, the same concept, you know, between your sync and your acknowledge concepts, right? So if you have a lapse in timing, then you kind of open the door. See, it's kind of like a bank, right?
Right.
If you walk through a bank door, and if the door closes really fast,
right,
so that means that the criminals cannot get in.
Right.
But what if it just barely closes?
Right.
And, you know, depending on the size of the criminal himself, right, he could slip through the door.
Exactly, yeah.
So that same concept follows timing. in these time and eras.
Well, speaking of timing, our time is about up here, so that's a great way to segue. And I'm just looking at the list of our upcoming topics. We've got a great lineup for this season coming up, so stay tuned. Some of the on the short list is what cybersecurity hackers don't want you to know, how to determine your cybersecurity business capabilities. We're going to be covering lots of other topics on that line. Zero trust in terms of U.S. government agencies. Key reasons there. So lots coming up here. But Dewayne, again, our pleasure to have you back in the studio here on the Georgia, our Global Podcast Studios here in our Atlanta, Georgia studio. So Rich Casanova here signing off. Dewayne, we'll see you on the other side of the microphone soon.
All right, and take care.